When my father died, my sisters cried louder than anyone else in the room. 2 months later, they were driving matching luxury cars bought with my inheritance. 6 months later, they were sleeping in a shelter because they never read one paragraph in the trust. My name is Victor Lang, and if you ever inherit anything, read every line, especially the boring ones your relatives skip. My father wasn't flashy, but he was wealthy in the quiet way. Commercial warehouses, long-term leases, boring businesses that print steady money. He hated showing off, said wealth should be invisible and defensive. My 2 older sisters believed the opposite. Appear rich first, figure it out later. Designer bags on credit, VIP sections on borrowed money, photos with cars they didn't own until they suddenly did. I was the slow one in their eyes, accountant brain, risk checker, paper reader. Dad used to joke, Victor reads contracts like bedtime stories. When he passed, grief lasted about 3 days before the inheritance politics started. There was a trust, not just a will, that mattered. Trusts come with rules, triggers, conditions. My sisters didn't care about rules. They cared about totals. The trustee was a private fiduciary firm, neutral third party. Dad didn't trust family to manage money without turning into enemies. He was right. We sat in a glass conference room for the trust briefing. Coffee untouched. Fake sadness everywhere. The trustee explained structure. Liquid funds split 3 ways. Investment portfolio locked with staggered release dates. Primary commercial property held inside trust entity. My sisters kept interrupting. So when do we get access? How fast can we withdraw? Is there a spending restriction? The trustee kept saying the same phrase. Distribution conditions apply. They nodded without listening. I listened because conditions are where traps and protections live. Each of us received an initial distribution substantial enough to change a life if handled properly, enough to destroy one if handled stupidly. Guess which path they chose. Within weeks, social media told the story. 2 imported luxury SUVs, custom colors, paid cash, they bragged. I knew that was impossible unless they pulled funds. They threw a joint new chapter party and invited me like it was a coronation. I went quietly. Champagne tower, valet line, cameras everywhere. My sister Elena hugged me and said, "See, Dad would have wanted us to enjoy it. Dad hated waste like poison." I asked one question. "Did you clear the purchases with the trustee?" They laughed like I'd made a joke. "Why would we need permission? It's our money." I didn't argue. I just said you should reread page 42. They never did. Here's what page 42 said. Simplified. Any beneficiary who converts trust-distributed capital into depreciating luxury assets above a defined threshold before Phase 2 release triggers a clawback review and distribution freeze. Translation: if you blow it on flashy toys too fast, the faucet turns off and prior distributions can be legally reclaimed through offset. Dad built a behavior filter. They drove straight into it. 90 days later, letters went out. Formal review notices. My sisters call me furious. "Did you report us?" "No," I said. "Math reported you." The trustee requested purchase records, asset declarations, financing proofs. Here's where mistake number 2 happened. They titled both vehicles personally, not under protected holding structures, and posted public purchase celebrations with dates. Evidence package gift-wrapped by ego. The trust froze their Phase 2 distributions immediately. That alone would have hurt, but not destroyed them. The destruction came from the offset clause, because they had taken early supplemental draws by claiming business setup needs. False. The trust had the right to recover misuse through asset lien and civil recovery filing, which means legally the trust could claim against their cars. They still didn't believe it until the repossession notices arrived. I got the call from Elena screaming, "They're stealing my car." "No," I said calmly. "They're recovering trust property. You're enjoying this. I warned you." They tried legal pushback, hired a flashy attorney who clearly hadn't read the trust either, filed an emergency block motion, denied in 4 days. Because the loophole wasn't a loophole, it was a compliance trigger. The vehicles were seized, but we're not at the shelter part yet. That came from the 3rd mistake. To afford insurance, tax, and image, they had taken high-interest bridge loans using expected Phase 2 trust distributions as informal backing. When distributions froze, lenders didn't care about feelings. Payment demands started. Then default notices. They tried refinancing, but their asset statements showed frozen trust income and active recovery action. No bank touched them. Condos went next, leases unpaid, evictions filed. I met them once during the spiral at a diner of all places. No makeup, no glam, just stress. Elena said, "You could fix this if you talk to them." "I'm not the trustee," I said. "But you're the favorite." I shook my head. "I'm the reader." They asked what I did with my distribution. I told them the boring truth. Paid off debt, bought minority stakes in 2 of Dad's warehouse partners, put the rest into laddered bonds in adult index fund. Silence. No applause for boring until boring survives. 3 months later, both were staying in a transitional housing program run by a nonprofit. Ironic twist, partially funded by one of the very commercial properties inside our father's trust. Yes, really. I visited once, not to gloat, but to close a loop in my head. They expected judgment. I gave them information. "There's a recovery path," I said. "Financial behavior course completion restores partial distribution eligibility after review period." They stared. "You're serious?" Dad planned for failure, too. Final twist, the part nobody knew except the trustee and me. My father added a silent writer clause. Any beneficiary who triggered the clawback and later completed financial rehabilitation could receive matched restoration funded from a separate reserve, a second chance fund, not automatic, earned. Punishment wasn't the goal. Correction was. They thought the system was a trap. It was actually a test. Last I heard, they enrolled. No luxury cars now. Just bus passes and budgeting crosses. Strangely, that's exactly how Dad started. The loophole wasn't meant to destroy them. It was a built-in behavioral safeguard. And the trust secretly includes a second chance restoration fund for those who learn and correct their mistakes.